Hey, this podcast is all about how we find and keep walking our unique creative path in the world. And if you're interested in that topic and you'd like to know how I got here, I have a book about this. It's called Tiny Altars, A Midlife Revival. It's my memoir, and I would love for you to read it. You can find it anywhere you buy books online. And if you've already read it, I would love an Amazon review to help other people find it as well. Okay, on to the podcast. We are in a time that could only be described as liminal space. We don't know what's happening. And I really want to grapple with this. And this takes me back to my life coach training. And so to talk about this, I've invited a coach in my network, Bridgette Boudreau, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. You're listening to Courageous Wordsmith. I'm Amy Hallberg, author, editor, and creative mentor. And these are conversations with real-life creatives on how we find and embody our voices. Because if you want to be a real-life creative, it helps to know what that looks like for you. Welcome to Courageous Wordsmith.
Thanks for having me, Amy. When we landed on liminal space, ironically, I'm like, oh, that's my jam. Like, I hate being in liminal space myself, but I think because I hate it, so I shouldn't say hate, but because it's so uncomfortable, I've done a lot of work here. And a lot of my body of work is about how to keep moving even when you're in liminal space.
I love that you said that because I like to help people who are moving through that too, but I don't like to be in it. So I love that you just acknowledged it's uncomfortable. Even if this is your expertise and you know how to navigate it, it's not pleasant per se.
100%. And if you're a coach and you find yourself in that liminal space, which you will, it's going to mean taking a lot of your own medicine and just going like, oh no, I remember to use this tool. Yeah.
Well, and so I want to set up this conversation by saying that I want to talk about the life coaching world because I think it provides some interesting context for our conversation. But I also want to say that what we're talking about could apply broadly to most of humanity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when you're talking about liminal space, let's just start with the definition. What do you mean when you're thinking about liminal space?
Liminal space to me is when one door has clearly closed. Another door will surely open, but it has not yet. And so we're in the space between. We can now, if you're like me, you've been banging at, clawing at, scratching at that old door until, I was talking to my partner about this the other day because I've been in a liminal space with my business. I was banging my head against the wall, and because I didn't know what was next. And that creates that dynamic of trying to go back to what's comfortable. And for me, I go back and I go back and I go back and it doesn't work and it doesn't work and it doesn't work until finally I'm ready. And she just said to me, she said, well, you're no quitter.
Yay.
Yeah. Yay. So those things that are our gifts also become, our weaknesses in these moments, but it really is that space between. And so what I've learned about liminal space, and my whole body of work is about this because I work with people at midlife who are thinking about what's next, and that's a liminal space. And people come to me for business advice, and they're almost always in some kind of liminal space and trying to feel their way forward. And so I came up with this framework, the Mosaic Framework, that is about how to start feeling your way forward from this liminal space. And so you can see there's a multiplicity. We're in a societal liminal space, a worldwide liminal space, kind of, however you want to look at that. And then if you're personally in a liminal space, which now many of us are, and then this time of year that we're recording is liminal, right? So there's a lot of liminal. And here are two things I know. The best way through the liminal space is to stay in it. So to recognize when those old doors have closed, so the old way is gone, and if you need to grieve, whatever you need to do to wrap up that chapter, but not try to go back. And then the new hasn't come, but what we so often do is try to get in front of the new or try to figure it out. So if the new is scary, then we're trying to figure it out and get in front of it and be ready for it. But actually what that does is, and especially if it's a scary or an uncertain future, but even if it's a positive future, it's like you're draining your vitality, trying to get ready for things that may or may not happen. And so it's really important to stay centered in yourself. I just think of you're in this active stance with life, because you don't want to withdraw. The other thing that you do is you just kind of withdraw. And I call that like when I go into the bunker. I used to just, or the foxhole, right? I'm just going to stay in here until it's over. And so neither one of those, running ahead, trying to get in front of it, withdrawing, neither one of those are in a stance with life.
You mentioned that you work with people at midlife. I think there's a lot of people, we're at an inflection point right now.
Yes.
Like everybody's sort of at this together collectively. So it's bigger than just. But I think this is such a common thing for people at midlife. And I like what you talked about, the door closing. But sometimes I think, and then trying to get ahead of it and find the next door. And I think one of the beauties and hard things about midlife is, at midlife, we're not going to fit so neatly into a convenient template like we did when we were younger, because we have so much more of life to bring to bear that we're trying to integrate. And so the door that we're looking for might not be for anyone else.
Exactly.
It might only be ours.
And I think that's true for everyone, but I think that I agree, you get to this phase of life and you have less tolerance for the BS and the things that don't align. Your ambitions change. And so you might be a bit of a grizzled veteran of like, when I was a kid, when I was young, I wanted to claw my way to the top and be a CEO or something. And then I did some of that and I was like, that's not it for me. And so our ambitions change, but we're also, I was just reading a thing this morning, we're living, I think it's almost twice as long as people who were born in the late 1800s are living. Like, it's really bananas. We are living. So there's this whole phase of life. Like, if you look at pictures of your grandparents when they were in their 50s or their 60s, they look like elders. I mean, we've all seen these pictures. There's that Golden Girls meme or whatever. And we don't look that way, And so there's this new phase of life that is sort of post-career, post-family, post all of that stuff, and is not yet retirement, elderhood. There's this new phase that is ours to figure out. But you're right, there's no template.
Can we talk about one template when I quit my job, I was definitely looking for templates. It's like, I'm quitting my job. Oh, I'm going to be an author. Oop, that's not panning out. Okay, I'm going to go get a certificate in editing. Okay, wait, that's not it either. And when I quit my job, I entered the life coaching world. It's what you're talking to, right? Like it's this mosaic. I love that imagery. What a great image. Can you talk about what happens when people go through maybe life coach training as just an example of that?
Yes, because that's where the mosaic came to me, because I watched so many, and myself included, people find out about coaching, and it's almost like we're little goslings and we just imprint, oh yes, this is it, and it's such a strong yes for so many reasons. I mean, we don't talk enough about the wonderful aspects of coaching. And many amazing people as well who are heartfelt and want to do good. So all of that, bing, 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 and new ideas and personal growth, and it's just pinging away. But then, yes, there's a template because there's the people that are held up. So then we have who I call the coach influencers, right? And those are the coaches that are telling you how much money they make all the time with the big Instagram followings, and they're great marketers and usually not so great on delivering service. But they're the ones that a lot of time people think that I want to be that, because you come into this new space, you're vulnerable, you want to be successful, and maybe you haven't had the opportunity to truly reflect and define what success means for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what is the template for success? Well, capitalism, right? So that's there. And that creates resonance. Or we're taught there's a therapy style template where you have your smaller one-on-one practice and your conscientious provider and all of that. And then you can go into the corporate world and do executive coaching. And those are the options. And so when I was training coaches, I talked a lot about coaching and I liked how you framed that as yes and, because even then I knew that the Mosaic way is you're taking the bits and pieces. So imagine that you're making a mosaic, right? But you don't know, you're starting with the pieces that you like. You're not starting with the image that you want to create. So you're on the beach and you're picking up some beach glass and some rocks and some twigs, and you're like, oh, this button's weird, but it wants to be in there. I don't know what that's about. And that's where you begin. And so I saw so many coaches not able to fill these templates because guess what? Most of us won't fill those templates. Most of us are going to have to find our own way. And so over the course of the years, I came upon this idea where, just like you were talking about, Amy, you were gathering the pieces of your mosaic, right? The German translation and the editing and the writing and the life coaching and the podcasting. Those are all pieces of your mosaic. And when you start to see it that way, it's less about the success or failure of one thing. And it's more about, what is this image of your life? And let me just take it back up, and then I'll come to the most liminal place that we're in right now, because I think this kind of work about who are we and how do we want to live is critical right now, to think about how do you want to live, because otherwise you're going to get led around the mouth with the outrage of the day and the issue of the day. And I think it's critical to plant a stake in the ground about what you stand for, what matters to you, where do you seek comfort and solace and meaning, so that you can always come back to that and not lose it and be as clear as you can be about it.
I think what makes it so hard, this figuring out what's my mosaic, like I quit my teaching job in 2016 and now we're 2024, right? So like I've been doing this work for a long time myself, as have you. We are conditioned to follow the rules. And so when we can't find rules, it's highly disconcerting. We're used to being inside systems. We're used to people telling us where to go, what to do, how to do it. Even if we're rebelling against it, it's still being defined externally. And I think that people who do not do that inner work are the ones doing a lot of harm to people in the world. Because if you don't know who you are, it comes out sideways, it comes out every direction, and you don't have a place to stand.
Absolutely. Another piece of my mosaic work was Parker Palmer, in his book, Let Your Life Speak.
Oh, yeah.
Talks about, the question, I'm paraphrasing, the question that we always ask ourselves is, what should I do, when we're trying to figure out what's next? And he said, but the elemental question to answer is, who am I? And so that right there, if you embrace that reframe right there, that's the biggest mistake people do. So back to the liminal space. What do people do? They want to go into action. The first thing I do with my clients, whether business, personal, whatever, midlife plus, is I get them to stop moving to conclusions so quickly. So that's one of the rules that we have, right? We're all great at boom, 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 boom. I conclude.
Mhm.
So in its simplest terms, this is like that. I always give this example. You see a kid who loves animals and you're like, oh, Tommy, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or we tell them, you should be a veterinarian. Oh, look at how you are with animals. You should be a veterinarian. Well, this poor kid, right? Let's say they go to veterinarian school and it is not at all petting puppies and kitties. And so then all of a sudden it's like, well, I shouldn't do that. And I saw that in the coaching world all the time too, is people were trying to be those templates. And then when they couldn't do it, they said, oh, this is not for me. And that's not the correct conclusion to draw. The correct conclusion to draw is, I don't fit those templates. I have to keep going. So people would glom onto coaching and then kind of stop or think that is it.
The definition of a template is that you're supposed to take that example and then shape it to what you need.
Exactly.
And anything can be a template. So you go into a program and they provide you some of the information. I love that you mentioned that book by Parker Palmer, Let Your Life Speak. I actually was given that in my school district. We had a little book club and read that. And that book blew my mind because half the time the guy is sitting around not okay. Like a big chunk of that book is him like checking out of society and just going almost catatonic because he can't do what he's been asked to do.
Exactly. And I think it's actually an important example because he was trying to be a front line. So Parker Palmer feels very deeply about social justice. And he was trying to be on the front lines of social justice. And he just couldn't do it, to the point it was damaging his mental health, to the point that, I mean, really extreme. And he kept trying because he believed. Now, I mean, I find this so relatable, right? He's no quitter. So he believed and he thought that was what he was supposed to do. And when finally that door hit him in the face enough times and he surrendered to the fact that he is not that guy. So that's another important piece here. And in the Mosaic work, one of the elements is understanding what your limitations are. And those hit hard at first because I am not the person who can do that. So like I just ran into one of my own limitations. I am not the person who's going to have a big marketing platform and do all the social stuff and maybe even write a book. Like, I don't know that any of that is for me. And that hit hard initially. But when I could accept that that's possible, and look, if it comes back around and the timing is right and the moment is right, I will meet it with open arms. But at this moment in time, I am not that one. But that opens me up to what I am.
Right, that you haven't even been paying attention to. And I think that oftentimes you're busy panicking because you don't know what to do. And then you look and you let that go and you look down and it's like right in front of you. It was there the whole damn time.
That is always it. I mean, to me, that's the cosmic joke. And it's so delightful when my clients find it, or when I find it, it's the best. And to me, that's why in my current liminal space, it's always been business for me. Like I've always thrived when I'm helping other conscientious business owners solve problems, build their business, giving them advice and counsel, helping them fly. Like that's my thing. And, whatever else comes from that is great, but trying to prove myself as a coach or big name coach, even though I didn't want to be, there was a time where I wanted to be one of those big shiny coaches. And then I think there was a time I was trying to prove that I could. And I don't know that I'll show you is the best approach.
Well, if you're working with somebody who is a mentor, a guide, a coach, and they're so certain about things that have never happened before, it leaves no room for, if you're a follower of that, you can become very fragile because here's this person that's working with you and they purport to have all the answers. And if they don't, where do you place your trust? to me, I've found it's actually better to have a coach, a guide who's like, I don't know, let's look at this. Let's explore this. Let's not close off anything. Let's not jump to conclusions. Like, I'm not aspiring to be this thing. I'm just being present in the moment.
Yeah.
But that's such a hard thing to come to when we're told, I'm a little bit older than you, but we're, women of a certain age where we came up, where we had rights that our mothers and grandmothers didn't, and we were supposed to take the world by storm.
Mm-hmm.
What does that even mean? That's a lot of pressure. And that's just one more way where it's like, well, you have freedom to do this iteration of a template. So the idea that you can be a really powerful coach, and I mentioned that you were someone in my network, but I knew your name for a while now. But at the same time, you aren't drinking the Kool-Aid about that.
No, I'm not. But I did drink the Kool-Aid for a while. And I think as a former Kool-Aid drinker, God, that's just a terrible metaphor. But,
Is there a different
I
metaphor?
know as a, I mean, all the ways I'm talking about how you get hooked, I was hooked and I've been hooked, we're all just humans having this human experience. And that's the stance that I want to take is I have some skills and talents that I think are good at helping other people. And that's the place I come from. But my mission is to help people find their truth, not to install my truth or say that I get results or, they do the work. And I'm just here helping and supporting. But yeah, I think people, we all, again, because of these templates that are installed, the messages we get in the culture, you were talking about having it all. I mean, one of the things I talk about in my work is you can't have it all and you can't be it all. And actually, those constraints form the canvas on which we create. So it is actually liberating to understand what your constraints are, both within yourself and maybe even the ones that are pressing in on you, not to say, oh, I can't, not from a disempowered place, but a place of like, yeah, I can't bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan and, never let him forget he's a man, all that we got in the 70s and the 80s, right? It's like, choose one. But I think those realizations they are actually empowering. Oh, I can't have it all. I'm not going to be it all. And maybe I'm not meant to be a superstar or super wealthy or super, but what can I be? And I think those are a lot more interesting questions. So you talk about, I think the mosaic in a lot of ways is the anti-template, because it's like, what do I do when I don't know what to do? What do I do when the templated ways aren't working anymore? What do I do when I'm faced with a blank canvas of my life? Well, start defining what the canvas is. And that's through the things that ping for you and your limitations, which form the border of your mosaic. It's like, okay, well, this is where I exist. This is what I'm great at. This is what I want to pour my energy into. These are not the things that I'm good at or I want to pour my energy into. And it's not to say that you don't try to improve yourself, but I think sometimes people challenge themselves in the wrong way. Like, it's challenging enough to live your life. Why do you have to make it harder? So it is ultimately about making things easier. I had this client one time and she had been fired from her job. And she said, well, I thought I needed to challenge myself. There was a woman in the company that was very highly regarded, but also had a reputation for being difficult to work for. So she decided she needed to go work for this woman. Well, and then she ended up getting fired because it didn't work out. So that's one of the things that she needs is to have a supportive boss. Like that is so critical to her. Other people can deal with difficult personalities and may have other reasons to do that. But once she understood that that was a limitation, that also becomes a requirement for the environment where she's going to thrive. Is like she needs a team. Like we really, detailed it out, but she needs these people connections that feel safer at work.
So when you talk about that, what that allows us to do is to set boundaries, because we don't even know that if we aren't even acknowledging to ourselves. I mean, I've been in that job too. If I just try a little harder, maybe I can make this work. And at a certain point, realizing, no, it's never going to work. Stop trying is so freeing. It's a hard lesson to learn. But going forward, if you understand that about yourself, then you have that boundary and you can say, this is what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm not willing to do. And I think sometimes when we're so busy doing all the things, we never get any of that discernment.
Exactly. So that's what the liminal space will give you if you step back and stop trying to spin all the plates and start asking yourself, am I the person that is supposed to do that? I kept doing the marketing launches, that siren song of, oh, if I just do it this way, perfectionism, parentheses. And, if I just say the right words in the right way, and then I talked to a wise friend of mine and she was just like, nope, it's not working for you. You are not the one. I am not the one. And the hard part is, you look out there. So in my example, other people are having marketing launches and they're doing great. Like I've been a marketer my whole life. Like, why can't I do this? And then it'd have to get comically bad. Doors shutting, doors shutting, doors shutting, bang, bang, bang. And then finally surrender. And I say, oh, for me, it's about the network. It's about helping people in more substantive ways and deeper engagement. And when I'm not doing launches and trying to generate content all the time, I actually have more time and bandwidth to do deeper work with my clients. Guess what? That I also get paid for. That comes easily to me. That is natural. When I move through the network, things come to me more naturally. So that's the value, but breaking the template that you think you should be following will feel like when you reach the end of your current paradigm, it feels like the end of the world as you know it. It feels like flat earth. Like I'm going to go off the other side because you don't know. You're at the end.
I was going to ask you, and I think you just answered it, but I just wonder if you want to elaborate a little bit more. What is the fear underlying the thought that I have to be doing that thing? I have to be doing this thing, where you then set it down and we're like, oh, or, to me, it's the fear I'm going to be alone. If I don't do all this work, I'm going to be like alone forever. And it sounds like when you set it down, people found you, like the way that would feel more natural. But is there something more to that?
Well, I think that's why we resist surrender in general, because it's triggering whatever your survival fear is. So I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be broke. I'm going to be disrespected. I'm going to be a failure. It's whatever you're most afraid of is what you have to surrender to, because that flat earth metaphor really works. So it's like, you're sailing toward the edge and you don't yet know there's a curve there. And so that is an act of faith. What gets you into the new paradigm, I think, is having faith and maybe having some help,
Right.
to say, look, you're going to find something when you stop doing that thing that you think you have to be doing. And there's ways to do that too. Like I never want people to make rash decisions that are harmful, right? So let's do it practically. But I got to the place where I had sort of chipped around the edges. And then there's the point where I just was like, okay, I can't launch anymore. At least for right now, I'm going to stop doing it and see what happens. And then I noticed, oh, I'm making about the same, like this has just been months, like this is just the summer. Well, making about the same amount of money that I was before, maybe a little more with less work. That's interesting. and as I recover from some burnout, so it's also like my energy is not maximal right now. So it's like, okay, I'm sustained right now. And like I said, then I noticed, oh, I can actually tell clients like, yeah, would you like me to do this piece of work for you? Or would you like me to work more in depth with you on it? And those were things that I had been shying away from because I had all this other stuff to do. So those are the kinds of things that you will find, but you have to stop.
Brilliant advice. Just stop.
Just stop. And it's hard, right? Because then people want to rocket into what's next. And I just know enough. I've been here enough times where I was like, okay, and you can feel it. So even when I tried to charge forward in my mind, like I got an idea and I'm like, oh, and there was just no energy there. So you have to really, that's the thing about staying connected to yourself, is your body will tell you. And if it's like there's no energy there, then trusting that. And I do know enough and trust enough that it could just be burnout in this moment. Like there's ideas that I have of things I want to do. And as I start to mentally pursue it, it's like, nope, not yet. Maybe later, and some things are just like, nope, not that. And so I just trust.
That is radically countercultural.
It really is. And so the Mosaic Framework, but it's not just the Mosaic. Look, it's just an amalgamation of things that have helped me, but I call it the busy box for adults. So what to do in that time when you're in a liminal space is not just to be still, but to read books you like. Notice the things that ping for you, but don't try to capture them and pin them down like a butterfly yet. Just be like, oh, butterfly, I like that. This is interesting. Community and it is pinging for me in a new and different way in this moment, but I'm not going to chase it down. I'm just like, oh, that's there. Okay. So you do things that bring you pleasure and you learn in small pleasures. Oh, I love this meal. I like walking. I love these leaves on these trees. The more that you can notice, you're attuning your attention to notice other things that come into your field. And so the liminal space is about smaller moves. It's usually about resting your soul and trusting that when you do those things, insights and energy will return.
Thanks for listening to Courageous Wordsmith. Today's episode featured Bridgette Boudreau. You can read more about her and check out her links in the show notes. That's where you'll find my links too. Backstage at Courageous Wordsmith, our production team is the brilliant Brooke Roy and me, Amy Hallberg. You can subscribe to this podcast right on this page. Sign up for my emails and share with friends who want to write. And how about you? You have stories to tell. What if you let yourself tell them? What would that look like for you? I am Amy Hallberg, and until we meet again, travel safely.